And building off of.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Getting onto that through the modeling.
Yeah, getting those skills up for sure, right? So that, you know, sometimes companies provide training and stuff like that, but sometimes it's on your own to kind of focus your training on what you want to do and then get up to speed with it. There's lots of good resources online, lots of forums and stuff like that to figure things out. But I think learning, I learned the hard way, just went straight into a project without using Revit, which was awful, but like you learn really fast when you're under pressure like that. And if you've got a good mentor at work, that makes a big difference.
Model-
Experience to talk with.
Get used to
Model
it.
your, model your house or building that you're living in, and you'll learn fast.
Practice.
Yeah, and also that practicality side, like going to site, if you can, like looking at how things are actually going together in real life, it's, you know, it's a lot messier than it is in a 3D model. And I think that it's really beneficial to see it in real life. And yeah, it's just every construction site you pass, really peek in on it.
Or like ask to go to site to like wherever you're working, and just like don't be afraid to like ask the engineers and the designers 1.5 million questions, because they will want to share, but sometimes you just have to like try to get it out of them first. But I feel like that's the job that drafters and techs are doing. You're kind of like that translator for the engineer who's the specialist and really good at math, but not necessarily good at translating it in like layman's terms. Not to say that Revit is layman's terms at all, but I feel like, yeah, just increasing that conversation with the person who's building it in their head. Like if you can get in their head, I feel like you can model it better.
Taking what
If
they
that
have,
makes sense.
then
Yeah.
putting it onto paper
Yeah.
in a sense.
It's a good point, because there's no point in having this, you know, a brilliant engineer with all these amazing ideas if they can't communicate it on paper or in a model, right? It just gets lost. So the other thing should be capture all of that.
Yeah. And that's what I like about the 3D element too. It's like when I was in school, I heard an educator once use the term CAD monkey, which is a horrible term, but it's like basically drafters who would just know how to do things without thinking about it, whereas like 3D modeling like forces you to understand
Pay attention.
what you're putting on the
With
paper.
a lot of issues.
Yeah. Did anyone else have any other questions?
I have one. How do you get people inside your firm and in other firms to maintain working systems?
Like laying it out in stone. You can maintain it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even like if I'm setting up the models, like sometimes I will set up each discipline's model and give it back to them. Because it can, you know, it can be a painful thing, right? People want to get going in the beginning to start modeling. They do, but it's like, you have to move that and what's up here. That's over there or something. So it's a big one for the beginning, right? At the BEP stage. At the execution plan stage is to get that system down. If you're the BIM lead, you're responsible. So yeah, sometimes, especially like within AE, if we have multiple disciplines working, I'll set their models up. Just say, yeah, your model's ready. I haven't done any work. I've just moved it. I know it's working. That's how I kind of keep track.
Once it is set up, pin any linked models in place so they don't move.
Well, by the way, there's always.
There's other strategies as well, like so if I'm only the BEP on the job, I'm not doing a discipline per se, then I will have my own in the model where I basically link everybody in and I watch what they're doing basically. I can open it once a day and see if anybody's out or move something, right? And you just have markers you can set up just to kind of monitor that.
Well, I have a question here. So how about different softwares? Like, there are companies who are using Tekla, there are these who are using CAD books, and most of the time they are generating IFC files, and those IFC files doesn't contain project coordinates.
No, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
I do already have image for manufacturers. I totally understand that. And it's amazing software what you can do with it, and the fluidity and what you can connect to your machinery, for the output for cutting the beams. But the 2D output is where it fails. Suddenly you have this export to 2D and it blows out your 3D model into a whole bunch of lines that have no relationship to your model on that. So I developed a system in Revit because Revit is a database basically, and it links with all kinds of other models really beautifully. So you can use the power of Revit to really work with your linked model, whatever the source is, and document it that way, and have some control over it. Because if you don't do that, when you do this control over the system, so it's, yeah.
You're gonna host a workshop.
I feel really blessed with companies worked from Revit from day one, which is wonderful because I love Revit. I have worked with companies that were hybrid, but then they always lean towards ACAD, and I mean, like, I can't do ACAD anymore, sorry. So really having that best practice up front is one of the things with Revit is that it doesn't like geometry that's outside of its 20-mile radius. So you have to really control where you're placing it up front. And it's easy. There's a coordinate system, 0, 0, 0. So if you always focus on pinning something, one intersection point of the building or the survey, that's 0, 0, then you always know where everything is. And then for our position, coordinating professional, we are providing that coordination set to all of the consultants. So we're setting up that first, and we're setting it up to everyone. So it should just be moving away, not have to leave over. So, and you know, we're always to support people through the process as well to make sure. I think it's easier to support people up front and help consultants find the right answer to their questions up front, and then I guess faster and faster. It can be, that's where the team's defined technology comes in. It can be confusing up front, so.
So this, we are getting models from also contractors, usually in ISC format. And the thing is, we will try to align those models, and it's really hard to align those. Once we have aligned them, then we note down all the X, Y, Z value into our investigation plan, so that anytime they are updating their model, it will align.
Exactly. And it just requires that fullness up front. I think sometimes people get sort of more focused on real world coordinates. The thing to remember is that everything's relative, and you know, so we can still attach those real coordinates while maintaining our 0, 0, 0. So the model always stays in place.
As long as people don't move their model space internally, they take their own brush to go to another sheet and start it, because that's probably more often than
And is that in Revit?
yes.
Okay, yeah, it's probably just a few model management things to help people keep a line in place they shouldn't be moving at.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
My firm does like do as builds.
Okay.
They got more broad and way to fix something that's flashing real world from just all issues. And the consultants, depending on their cost, kind of don't give you it because they completely bastardize their coordinate system where it was. It's like, oh, I'm going to move it over here, and you're going to not care for you know, all that stuff. You brought in geodetic to mill, right?
Yeah.
But also, you matter.
You just have to find that alignment with the reference point.
Yeah. Which is good. But I don't stop coordination.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from like your stuff, there's like scan to get relative to the model somehow.
Yeah.
Right. So
Can I ask one question here? I'm interested in this topic. So have you guys tried out parking lot method? No? So the thing is, consultants, they will create different discipline models, and they will place different cubes, and they will create a parking lot. And for those parking lot, that's a fixed location. Every discipline will they place their cube there. So for example, there will be a specific queue for architects, specific queue for structural team, events, and that queue always needs to go on same spot.
yeah, so it's like a model check approach, right?
Yeah.
And you know things are aligned. So I've seen one which is like the tribute to Suki pies. Suki. So each discipline has a pie top. So if you're all referenced, if you have a model where you link all the models in and share orders, whatever system, that cylinder should have all those pies in each per discipline. That's one way. You know, this one's is kind of like your parking lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, similar approach to monitoring to make sure everybody's the same area.
So the advanced, that's advanced.
Could we get one last question in by Paul?
Oh, that's a lot of pressure for the last question. Just for those of you that do have BIM execution plans that use them religiously, do you have them for different levels of projects that are like pre-set up and ready to go? And with that, how do you deal with, say, less experienced users in enforcement and explanation, just to kind of get everybody on the same page?
If you don't have a mentor, somebody looking over and telling you, asking, like, everybody needs a mentor. If you're a junior person, you need to be constantly in touch with somebody senior that you can bounce questions off of, having conversations, and do not be afraid to have those conversations. It's much better to, here's my assumption, what do you think? Rather than, oh, you didn't do that right. So it's okay to make assumptions, to tell how you think it should be, and ask for feedback is a good way to do that. But running it by a senior person is always recommended, especially model element tables. I'd like to give them to junior people and then have them go through it, and then I'll review it with them, have the conversation with them, and then we submit it to the team.
In execution plan wise, we don't keep copies of them and reuse them for each project. So we always start fresh. We have a lot of short form ones. With some projects might be 2 disciplines. So you just need that pertinent information. A, what's the order system? Number 1, where are we aligning? And they might be much shorter, maybe some, it's a very simple client, how many needs. So you tend to tailor them. So sometimes it's not super long and you got to tailor it down, but yeah, so we do it.
BIM, which is now called building transformations, has a great for BIM execution plans. And they have templates, so that's where I got the original template from, which has the full level 2 table.
So it's can BIM, is that?
Yeah, but now called building transformations, but their textbooks are still called.
Okay, yeah, it's good enough for people starting from scratch.
Whoever question, any preference for live links? It's shared, no patch. What's the preference?
Well, when we coordinate, we always do the publish and share, it's just as a way of controlling the sentence, so everybody's on the same page with that. But we're usually hosting the model, so we take the liberty to have our live links. Just so you know. So there's a bit of both. But in terms of the schedule, it's great to publish and share next. It creates a benchmark as well. So.
And it can be a combination. It doesn't have to be set. You could start out live during the prelim stage. You could move into just a shared during, a real working area. And then as you get closer to BP and you want to lock everything down, then publish and consume is best.
Quite project dependent sometimes.
Absolutely.
We're working on, usually you go the shared approach with architects and structural, just because that is always so evolving, right? That's just the way it is. So we use the shared approach there and we widen everything else. But even then, we try to organize our models so we're not so dependent on those elements of attaching the walls and floors. So if we separate it out, so if you have a big change, we can use our own levels, etc. For example, so that we control what we want to raise things over there. That's our strategy.
You had some issues with
Especially in the electrical, I remember wishing that I don't know what would be the accepted response. If I pushed back to an architect to be like, can we change it for electrical to be consumed style so that we can at least prepare for areas that the ceilings had to be deleted, and then rather than opening up the model and just being forced to deal with it at the time that I don't have time, yeah. Yeah.
That's big feedback for right up front, so people are amazing how much can go wrong. Somebody just takes one element to select element to leave, but then they just implemented a whole bunch of other stuff that they weren't aware of. So you really do have to be mindful, not just the area you're working on, whether it's work sets or assignments, but also mindful of other disciplines that are going to be expected from the model. Yeah.
But I don't know what it would be like for an architect, like how would it affect their workflow if different consultants were linked in a different aspect? Like, would that cause more problems for the architect if like, oh, electrical is linked this way, but structural is live, you know what I mean?
I don't think that's as normal.
Yes,
Because
right.
we like to see what's going on. And
Yeah.
the things that we don't, just, it's easy to filter it out or to use our work sets to check. So that's all.
It's also like architecture's hosted.
Exactly.
You've got so much control.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah, almost want to encourage electrical to like push back maybe into
Yeah.
this works better for us,
Good idea.
you know?
I think it's totally.
Yeah.
Relationship should work because I think you have a stable model. and
Yeah.
it's up to the architect to provide the next version of that, that's good, stable.
Yeah, so it really depends, right? All right, are people getting sleepy?
Some people are hungry.
Yeah.
Nice. Maybe I'll start to, yeah. So who does stuff?
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Thanks so much. So, set around.